piece of shit, Bob.
Ahsoka, we are 4 episodes in, Tone. Yeah. I want to get as a fan of the Rebel series, you are well versed. Ahsoka.
Yes.
Where are you at on this, man?
Ruhit came over for the first 2 episodes that first night, and he's a good testament as well too, because he's even more like picky about his Star Wars these days.
He's very picky.
And when we were done watching there, we were both like, okay, that was really fucking good. Like, that was a good start. Like, we were both like, we were a good start. We were trying not to get overly excited and hyped, but we were like, that's a good start, right? 3rd episode drops. 36 minutes long, short.
Yeah.
Are like, okay, that was a pretty good episode. Like,
I thought it was a sweet. I love that episode. I love 3 a lot.
Episode, right? I mean, you finally got, because a lot of people were complaining that the characters coming from animation to live action felt a little stiff in the first couple. We're trying to get their wings with these characters. I feel like it was because of the way they were telling the story and the awkwardness some of these characters have had. Like, they've been kind of like, I don't want to say they haven't seen eye to eye, so I think that was part of like what was trying to be conveyed, and it just didn't stick very well.
Sure.
Plus, they had to give people backstories to some degree to get people caught up and familiar with what's going on, which is
and
fair.
I appreciated it. I know there were some people that didn't like that because they were like, "Oh, you're already touching on stuff I know." I didn't know any of this.
I'm kind of hit or miss on it. I'm a little gatekeepy on this to some degree, and I admittedly am. And I don't want everything spelled out constantly. I actually, from the people that were complaining about that, I was surprised. I'm like, they really didn't like do too much. It was actually a good amount, like to the point where I wasn't like, I already know this. Can we go faster? Like I at all. I felt like it was a great job. So like that argument is weird to me, but I do kind of understand that some folks right initially were like, and Sabine's been hit or miss. I know with her acting for some folks, and that's fine. I get it, but I feel like Mary Elizabeth Winstead, when we get into that 3rd episode, and she'd already kind of was like, there was a couple episodes in the first couple, I was like, man, she kind of does have that Hera sound. She sounds like the Hera. I get that mother instinct from her. The 3rd one, like, open it up when she's having dialogue with Chop, and they're in the Phantom, and she's like back and forth with the droid. I'm like, holy shit! Like, I can hear the animation version of her. Like, she's got her down pat. So kudos to what she's done. Yeah. She's taking it very seriously.
Everyone's a big fan of her, by the way.
Well, I mean that that orange suit.
She has a whole lot of love on TikTok. I can tell you that much.
That orange suit's dying to pop. But no. And we all know that Rosario Dawson was taking this role seriously. She's been practicing in martial arts. She's been practicing at being ambidextrous. People said that the fight scenes have looked a little bit slower, and it's because she's not a weapon master,
right?
And she's doing a lot of her own choreography scenes. She wants to do it herself, and I appreciate and respect that. I'll take slower battles and fight scenes, but she's also a little bit older too, so it makes sense. She's matured. I'll take those scenes with somebody who cares about the material and respects it than the other side of it, and I can't get enough of that. And she's a little bit more stoic. Like early on, she was a little bit more bubbly. Even in the Rebel series, she's a little bit more stoic now as well too, and that's perfectly fine. It's working for this character. I believe Josie brought it up at some point as well too.
I'm going to read this right here. What Josie said: Ahsoka has been good. A little frustrated with Ren's back and forth. However, I think Dawson captures what I would describe as emotionless demeanor that might get mistaken for poor acting or no range, but I think she nails this dynamic. And God damn it, I was going to hit the sack, but Godzilla, fuck him in. I read it all.
No, I do agree with that, because you're talking about Rosario Dawson. Like, you didn't say Rosario Dawson's going to drop the ball on anything.
Right.
I do believe that she is supposed to come across as a little bit more of the grizzled master at this point.
Right, even keel.
When you stop and look, if you do or don't realize, of outside of like some of the members of the Skywalker family, she's had some of the biggest tragedies. The Jedi Order turned their back on her. Mm-hmm. Her master turned into fucking Darth Vader. You know what I mean? She's seen friends and people died. She escaped death at one point even. She has seen, and now one of her friends has been missing for years.
Right.
So like it's that's what Josie's talking about. She's got to come across as that because she's got a lot of things weighing on her shoulder, and trying at one point to also train a new Padawan who is weak in the Force, which is interesting, and that's a neat take too. Like, you're not really great at the Force. If you were blah blah blah, Ho Ying said we wouldn't even train you. Basically,
right.
That's what you don't see that too often in these Star Wars movies. Usually, oh, you can fucking breathe. Oh, you have the Force. Weird. Hey,
right.
Look at you, Rey Skywalker. You know what I mean? So. So far overall so good and very good. Like the dialogue has been incredible. The protagonists, right?
Antagonists are the bad guys.
Yeah, they've been really like Ray Stevenson's chewing up every scene.
I'm really liking what he's done
especially
so far.
last night's episode. Like holy
I
shit.
still get a man conflicted though. Like he was,
and he can and he's but that's the thing about him.
Yeah,
He's conveying.
I feel like right now his character is the most unpredictable at this point. Like it's I really want to know what's going on in his head.
It's gnarly to see that because he's in one sense clearly like working for.
He's bought into the Thrawn thing, but at the same time he understands Jedi's a little bit more than everyone else.
He's like, there's so few of them left. I would like to see. You know what I mean? Like he's a kind of a man of honor in regal sense. He encapsulates that early as far as like the prequels, truly like those kind of Jedi that were around that you get that feeling.
I fucking love that. I love that line. That was my favorite line from the episode when she was like, "Do I sense fear in your voice?" or something like that. She goes, "Is that your fear in your voice?" And he goes, "No, it's experience."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Dude, that's a fucking dope ass line."
That was a great way because he knows who Ahsoka's master was.
Yep.
He knows how powerful she is.
Yep.
And
I thought that was an incredible line.
Right, yeah. So he knows. And going into the show, being that this is one of my favorite characters, and we've talked about Dave a lot here. We've talked a lot about even of Ahsoka to some degree as well too. I was just worried, were they going to be able to convey the characters from cartoon? Because you got to wait. I mean, cartoon's got a little bit more goofiness to it. It's a little bit of this.
We've seen them do a little bit here and there leading up to this.
They've been sprinkling them in here, with Ahsoka and even in Rogue One and some, and even technically you see the Ghost and
Cad Bane. I thought was a nice way to bring somebody in.
That's that's Filoni. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like he's able to do this and do it well, and what I think we're seeing here, which makes this more unique, and here's where it really changes when you're looking at Mandalorian. Mandalorian was great. Mandalorian, especially through the first 2 seasons, was very awesome, but it was also very episodic. It felt they were structured very cartoon-like. This is a fucking movie. This is an epic tale and story being written, and you're getting a piece by piece every week. Disney knew going into this, they clearly knew that they had something that they had a lot of faith in, and they haven't had that in a while because instead of bringing it out on Wednesday nights, they decided a week before, they said, we're going to bring this out prime time,
Tuesdays.
6 p.m. East or 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, prime time on Disney Plus on a Tuesday night. That's faith in a product.
Yes, it is.
And guess what has to happen? You have to deliver that.
Yeah, you do.
And guess who did that?
Filoni.
So far, Dave Filoni, the prodigal son, as we call him. We all agreed last night in the Star Wars chat, me, Crash, Drassen, and Rohit. This was probably the first time in a long time after watching last night's episode that we were emotionally excited about what we had just watched.
Yeah.
Like to the point where there was a certain point where like I may have teared up just because of my excitement of it. And I know I wasn't alone. I saw everybody on Facebook that's super Star Wars fans as well too saying that. But we talked for an hour and a half after that about this episode and just all the implications. And I said that this was the first time since seeing digital Luke Skywalker at the end of season 2 of Mandalorian that I've been that excited for Star Wars. And prior to that, there hadn't been a whole lot of times before that either. And here we are. So, the big thing, and I want to be careful about the spoilers on this, so I'm going to try and be careful about what we see at the end of this episode, is a character who is a person who's done some live action as well, and it was pretty big deal. There was something that was said that I wanted to have said live action. We got to have in live action, and this is the first time technically in live action that these two characters have been able to do this, because it stems from the cartoons and Clone Wars and whatnot.
It was great.
And not only was that piece amazing to see that and have that, it created a lot of questions and a lot of excitement.
The location of it.
The location was the biggest piece of that. Now, this is where it's going to get confusing for a lot of people that are, not familiar with the cartoons, but, she's in this area called the World Between Worlds. What the World Between Worlds is in the wrong hands, people will say, oh, it's time travel, basically. It's like MCU doing their dive into the quantum realm. Well, Dave explains it similar, but the best way I always I try to explain it is it's like walking up to a bookshelf or a library and going up to all the old Legends Star Wars books or any Star Wars books, anything, and just grabbing one, opening up the page and reading a paragraph or two and being like, oh, that's a pretty neat event, and being able to peer into that time period, really, right?
Right.
And that's kind of what the World Between Worlds is. It's a Force Nexus that was dealt with very heavily in Rebels. It's actually how Ahsoka was brought back into the series, thanks to Ezra and his strength of the Force. It's not something that you can just tap into. Like, you got to be, first, it's location. There's to access it, location's a piece of it, typically, and also the amount of Force power that you bring. And she's in this area, and she started conversing with somebody at the end. Very, very big deal. This whole thing's a very big deal. Like, to say that, to have seen some of the series and the characters growing through these cartoons, is to understand why it's such a big deal.
Right.
You know, I mean, generally it is because of the character, but like the how we got there that we've seen is why it's so important. And you know, it's interesting because in the wrong hands, the World Between Worlds could be used really lame and weak and
retconning shit,
you know, and things like that. So you got to be careful. And I think because Dave created it, and we had heard rumors it might be in live action, he's probably the only one that has keys to that to be able to mess with that, because anybody else might fuck with it. I mean, who knows what would, I mean, I don't hate Rian Johnson, but like, who knows what Rian Johnson would do with that? Who knows what J.J. Abrams would do with that?
Right.
You know, ask 42 questions and answer 2 of them, probably. That's what J.J. Abrams would do. But, you know, so it's going to be used as a plot device for what we've seen in, I think, originally in first, but I think it's actually also going to be for certain parts of the series, because you can use it for travel.
Sure.
So who knows what that looks like. But very, very, very amazing episode last night. The Mando series started out really great. The Mando series felt like a great Western. I think the problem is that they wanted to attach somebody like Jon Favreau to it, a big name. You know, they didn't trust, I don't think, Dave quite yet for something like that, or whatever they wanted to do. They got their baby Yoda in there before it was Grogu.
And Kathleen Kennedy
started selling products, and then Disney started going, oh, money. And so they started getting their heavy hand on it and wanted to start, you know, so instead of worrying about telling a great story, it became a little bit
marketing.
more. You had to have the comedic. Yeah, got the kids with the this is more for, like, kids can watch this, don't get me wrong, and they
but this is for the hardcore.
This is for hardcore, and this is for the adults. This is storytelling. Now we're telling, like, okay, Grandpa, go to bed, it's time for everybody to sit down and, like, enjoy a real story. And that's what's going on here, and that's what's exciting about it, because in 4 episodes, and I mean this wholeheartedly, in 4 episodes, Dave Filoni, who's needed this opportunity and finally getting this opportunity, and I think Disney now sees that they put the right faith into him and finally giving them some control.
Right.
This 4 episodes is better than the sequel trilogy combined, in my opinion. Period. And I mean that point blank. Like, you wouldn't be able to change my mind at all. Because, as Rohit says, this is Star Wars. This is Star Wars storytelling. This feels like Star Wars. This everything about it just screams like George Lucas, just kind of like, and don't get me wrong, I can critique him as well too, but it feels like his Star Wars. It feels like epic storytelling, and you know, feels like as important and as big as Empire Strikes Back.
Sure.
This last episode last night, definitely
very Empire Strikes Back.
Very Empire vibes, and
big time.
And it's tough to be able to do that these days, especially under Disney, because they're more worried about how many fucking action figures they can sell than they can anything else. And you know, to bring a character so important to so many of us through books, novels, animation, and now to live action, you put a big name to her, you know, with Rosario Dawson, and then she takes it very seriously. Plus, you got the guy who created her and who creates great storytelling and character development and has created a lot for Star Wars. I mean, again, I go back to it. They put this on primetime because they all of a sudden they stopped and said, we might have something here, and it's delivered.
My biggest critique so far, I need more Clancy Brown, okay? I'm not happy with just one showing by Clancy Brown. Where is he?
You know what's interesting about that, though?
Huh.
He's playing live action version of the character he voiced in animation, though.
That's fine.
That's pretty neat.
Get his ass back on the screen.
It was weird because he was kind of like an old guy, like freedom fighter, so he was kind of prominent through some of the seasons of that. So, but it's cool to see him actually play that. And we got, of course, David Tennant doing the voice of Ho Yang again, which is pretty cool. You know, and you know, Sam Witwer's out there somewhere, and all the theories about Marek were just squashed last night, which was great because And this character. So no, great series. And I know, yes, we want to follow back on what Crash said.
I just want to touch on what Crash said because he had a bounce earlier. He goes, I thought it was good at first, but was accelerated into awesomeness with yesterday's episode. But I worry that since it's connected to Rebels, a show with a small audience, that people won't give Ahsoka the fair chance. Kind of like with Andor. I'm fucking hyped for it, though. Tone will have some fun theories to share. Night cuties. No, I mean, and I feel like that's where, like, I'm glad that I know guys like you, Rohit, and Drastin who understand everything Star Wars. You know, like I said, I grew up on the mainstream movies. Some of the spinoffs like Rogue One and even Solo, things like that. And I started getting into the shows on Disney Plus, but I just don't have any of the knowledge of the books, especially the Thrawn series or the Rebels and what have you. I'm kind of getting caught up on that now with the newer stuff. But to be able to have you guys explain those things to kind of add more context to the stuff that I feel like they've done a really good job at kind of getting people caught up already. But then to have that extra like cushion of like, here's some more stuff that you might have missed in the show. Yeah. I think it's fucking dope. And I do think it's really good storytelling. And I do think this season of Ahsoka has been really, really, really good so far.
The gentleman who directed last night has directed animation. And I thought it was Dave Filoni that directed last night's episode.
Oh, really?
Peter Ramsey.
Yeah. I thought it was a great episode.
Directed like animated movies.
3 might be my favorite so far, but I think 4 has a lot more going for it.
I mean,
in terms of like setting things up,
the swordplay, the wide pan, high and low shots, with the helmet and everything going on. Like, I was very surprised to see that it was
not my Jason.
It's very funny, Blanco. I think the last thing I'll say about this is 2 things really. One, it's really crazy still to see, and if you talk to anybody like anybody that's seen Rebels cartoons will usually tell you that Rebels cartoon is the best that Star Wars has to offer, period. Most of us are super fans. I just funded the HasLab project for the show, by the way.
Jeez.
Pretty neat, $500. But either way.
$500?
Yeah, it's pretty neat. But anyways, Daddy tucked away some money for it because he knew it was coming. But where they're going and what the plans are and some of the whispers that we are pretty sure
Whisper like D&D?
I wish. That Dave was planning on maybe doing through Clone Wars and other things, and we think has opened the door for him to be able to. We're not now. There's people out there saying, "Are we retconning the sequel trilogy?" No, but with the other galaxy, we have the ability to do storytelling with not being tied to that time.
Right, you can work outside those
stories, which is a big deal. And we think that he's going to bring in some old school legend characters and different things that has been alluded by Elsbeth, who being a Night Sister is very cool. And I think that's really exciting. Like, he has constantly been the guy to reintroduce a lot of material and little things from the old legend canon slowly but surely, because he knows fans want it. For one, Disney has to have somebody introduce it under Disney banner for him to recognize it, but also because he's a fan and he gets it. So the same things that we want, he also wants. But he's got to do it slowly because they haven't trusted him with the steering wheel yet until now. And I think they're starting to realize maybe he should have been driving the whole time.
It's a valid point.
So we'll see.
It's a valid point. No, I'm enjoying the series so far. Now, has it hit Andor levels for me yet? No. But I know I also don't understand a lot of the stuff about Ahsoka that you guys do. But like in terms of like overall quality, I still think Andor was fucking peak.
Andor storytelling is going to be hard to just touch, I think, in general. Andor storytelling is just incredibly super like well written.
It's
like,
mature,
it's very
thought provoking, and it takes its time.
Right, and that's fine because we need the Rogue Ones, we need the Andors out there. But at the same time,
you got to have your Star Wars
with
stuff.
The Star Wars that have been separating the fans with the sequel trilogy, and even the Mando series with season 3. And the mess that was going on with the behind the scenes that we think about. This is like encompassing all pieces of those. Because that's what Rebels did as a cartoon did the same thing. This series is able to bring in everything and move it forward. And as Rohit said once again, it's starting to bring fans together again. So